Jaguar fans, y'all need some relief. Well, if you listen to your head coach or your quarterback, you ain't going to get none from them. Maybe I can help you out today here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is exactly what it is. Your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars, where you can find us on YouTube or at the Locked On Jaguars page, by the way, or wherever you get your podcast audio-wise. Make sure you check that location out each and every day so you do not miss an episode. Today's show is sponsored by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Shout out to the everydayers for joining us every single day. We appreciate it. You know you can be one too. All you got to do is do the same thing. All right, man. So we're just going to get right to it, man. You know, obviously, we're 2 weeks in, and it's not necessarily a great time for the Jaguars. They're 0-2. You could say last week that they outplayed the Miami Dolphins. You cannot say that this week about the Cleveland Browns. They didn't outplay Cleveland. In fact, it was almost a switcheroo. Like last week, they outplayed the Dolphins and they lost because of big plays. This week, they got outplayed by the Cleveland Browns and they almost big played their way back into it late in the game. And it was just a little too late. Obviously, they lost the game 18-12. There were some things that they could and couldn't do. So here's what we're going to talk about today. Segment 3, there are a lot of people that believe Shad Khan ain't going to do nothing about this. Because in the past, Shad has kind of been a little bit late to the party. I'll tell you why it's a little bit different now. And I'm really going to tell you why it's a little bit different now. Lack of push is still an issue. And I'm not just talking about the offensive line, although that's the biggest issue, in my opinion. All right, we're going to start it out, though, is why can't the Jaguars figure it out? And this is so nuanced, and I don't want to sit here and act like in a 30-minute podcast, I'm going to sit here and put the bow on that because that is a question that we have been wondering for most of the last 15 years, with the exception of a couple of years sprinkled in. Like, what's wrong with them, man? There ain't nothing. I have said ad nauseum that there's nothing wrong with Duval County. There's nothing wrong with the air that people breathe down by the riverfront where the stadium is. There's nothing wrong with the grass or the stadium and the water. I just cannot tell you why this franchise is just stuck. And I don't even know the word to say what they're stuck in. But whatever you felt last night and whatever you feel today is familiar, isn't it? You know exactly what you're going through. I know what you're going through. If you see a smile on my face, it's not because I'm happy that you're going through it. Nah, it's not because my podcast numbers are probably going to be higher, which it will be. No, it's not that. It's just that I'm smiling because here we go again. We are two weeks into the 2024 season, and I feel like I'm perpetually stuck on a roller coaster that I can't get off in 2020. That's exactly what this feels like. No matter how you change the people, no matter how you change the faces, no matter how you switch up the messaging, no matter what you name the stadium or the arena, no matter what uniform combinations you have on, it looks and feels like the same thing. So I will give you a little bit of a glimpse into what I'm thinking right now. And before anybody says, well, Wig, you didn't feel that way in the preseason. I ain't feeling nothing in the preseason because what I do is I wipe the slate clean every single time. I give the benefit of the doubt every single time. And I know a lot of y'all going to say that's a mistake. I shouldn't, but that's just the way that I'm cut. I'm not going to let baggage keep carrying over, because I won't enjoy the moment. I want to live in the moment. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't believe that people in that building did the best they absolutely could to change the Jacksonville Jaguars. Of course they did. Their livelihood depends on them working as hard as they as they possibly can. I'm not going to tell you that players don't want it. I'm not going to tell you that because I don't believe any of that stuff to be true. Here's what I know to be true. I don't care who tried what, it's the same thing. So we got to look at why is it the same thing. This starts for me, and I'm going to go beyond Doug Peterson, the head coach. Oh, we'll get to him too. We'll get to him. This goes beyond that to me. This all falls on Shad Khan. And before y'all say, well, Shad doesn't block one person, Shad doesn't tackle one person, he doesn't, you're right. You're absolutely right. And if you tell me that he spent more money almost than anybody in free agency, you're right. If you tell me that they finally started to retain their own players in the offseason, I'll say, you're right. If you're telling me that they tried to do something different, I'll say, you're right. But here's what happened. They burnt the onions. And what do I mean by they burnt the onions? What did I tell y'all in 2021 when they got rid of Urban Meyer and kept Trent Baalke? Not that he's done a terrible job, because I know what he's tried to do. And I understand and can rationalize why he tried to do it. The issue for me is the inability to just cut the cord and start completely over. You're covering up stuff, man. You're covering up mold. You're painting over things. And when you do that, guess what happens? Eventually, that little funk and that little smell comes back. You ever been to somebody's house and it's really, really clean because they clean all the time, as opposed to somebody who only cleans up because they expect you to be there, and through the fabuloso and through the ammonia, you still smell a stench of that funk that you know is in that house? That's exactly what you see and you saw yesterday. They just can't get out of their own way, even when they're better. They had big plays at the end of the game, one from Brian Thomas Jr., that allowed them. Trevor Lawrence had a big run. And then they missed a field goal that hits that clanked that would have had the game tied at the time that they were going, that they got pinned back in the end zone and got a safety. It should have been 16-13, and they would have been one of these teams that won a game that they had no business winning. But this is the Jaguars. That does not happen to them. They lose games that they have no business winning, and they lose games that they should win. And they're 0-2 in the next two games against Buffalo and Houston. They look like top 5 teams. Maybe, because the Rabbit don't have a gun the next couple of weeks, and they won't be favored in these games, and there aren't any matchups that you think absolutely favor them. Maybe they bow up and they decide that they're going to do better. But here's the thing. I heard Trevor Lawrence yesterday. He said, we suck right now. I heard Trevor Lawrence say, we thought we had a good plan. Maybe the plan wasn't good. I heard Doug Peterson say, been together too long right now for this to be happening. The coach and the quarterback have no answer. At least they didn't have it yesterday, and maybe they're going to have to try to figure it out, but they have no answer. And if they have no answer, we don't have an answer. But there are some things that we notice. There are some things that we talked about before that are the problem. I'm going to tell you what they are. As soon as we get to segment 2 here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by PrizePicks. That's right, man. It's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. But check this out. It's just you against the house, the computer. It's not you against the other 4,999,000 people. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Want to play PrizePicks alongside Drewski, Joe Button, MMA champ Sugar Shane O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. Here's what you got to do. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's Locked On NFL on PrizePicks to get $50 when you play $5. You don't even need to win, man. All you got to do is do exactly what I said. Collect that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And today's show is also sponsored by DoorDash. There's only one place that I trust, and that is delivery with DoorDash. And I'm talking about every single time food comes hot, food comes on time, very professional. And it's not just chain stores, it's your little mom and pop stores, the little pizza place on the corner. DoorDash will take care of you, man. I am telling you, they will absolutely take care of you. DoorDash, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Use the promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer, terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol, and you must be 21 or older to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. All right, segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen, trying to figure out what on earth is wrong with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that is something that we have tried to figure out for an awful long time. I don't think they're a terrible team talent-wise. I don't, but that's not an excuse for the GM right now, because at this point, because of all of the high picks, because of all the resources that Trent Baalke has been given, it's not about what you're not. It's not about that. It's about what you're supposed to be, and it's about his capability, his ability to get this team there. And I kind of had a little bit of off the record. I didn't meet with him, but we just bumped into each other at practice, and he said, "We'll see." And I love the transparency. When I said, "Hey man, it looks like you got everything you want," he said, "We'll see." And I get it, and I know you have to wait, and I know you never know how guys are going to respond, but we see, and we don't like. So we're trying to figure out now, what can we do about it? I think some missteps were, I don't believe that they didn't address the offensive line. I'll make that clear. I think they have addressed the offensive line. I just think they went about it the wrong way. I think they're looking for guys. If you notice the Jaguars offensive linemen, they look like basketball players with a little bulk on them, right? I think the traits of long arms and athleticism is overplayed a little bit in that group, because all I want is just some nasty guys that know how to beat people up and move people out of the way. I don't care if they look good in their uniform. I don't care how athletic they're supposed to be. I just want football players, man. And I think they need to get back. They need to stop being all about the size, no pun intended, and pause. But my thing is, they need to be about the business of finding guys, not that look a certain way, but that just play a certain way, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They can never, ever, ever, when they need to, line up and push people. They never seem that when they need protection the most, they never seem to be able to do it. And I believe it affects their play calling, because people are saying it's not just the offensive line, man, it's the play calling. It could be, but there's no way, if your offensive line is bad, that doesn't affect your play calling. This ain't John Madden here. This is the real deal. And it is obvious that if you have a bad offensive line, it will affect the way that you approach. You're not going to keep trying to do things you can't do, and then you're not going to even entertain trying to do things that you know you can't do, or things that you're afraid of. And they're not going to admit this. And I mean, sometimes it just makes my head pop that when you get a franchise quarterback, that you don't go overboard. Just totally go overboard with the protection in front of him. I really do believe that that's what you have to do. I'm calling into question now Phil Rauscher. I think they listen to coaches a lot when they evaluate offensive linemen. I think that has a lot to do with why Ezra Cleveland is the left guard. I like Anton Harrison. They wanted Anton Harrison in the draft. That was Phil Rauscher's guy, and he got his guy. And you know, I'm just thinking now, I can't tell a good offensive line coach when I see one, but I know we're treating this dude like he's Dante Scarnecchia, and we're treating him like he's Bill Callahan, or we're treating him like he's Howard Mudd or something. And I keep trying to figure out Okay, at what point, where does that all come from? Why such the benefit of the doubt to somebody who they didn't show? What has he shown? What has he shown? So this also still comes back on the way that you build a coaching staff. I'm not saying that they were wrong for changing the defensive staff from last year, but what I'm telling you is I knew that wasn't the only problem. I knew it wasn't the only problem. Now you got a coach that doesn't seem to know what to do next other than put his head down and go to work. And Doug Peterson, let me tell you something, is stand up. He never ducks a question, doesn't get mad at you for asking a question, doesn't throw his players under the bus. But when you ask him, somebody asked him yesterday, it was a great question, by the way, do you think they're good enough to do what you want them to do or something like that? He goes, I think so. And for me, he's not going to say, nah, hell no, they ain't good enough. Because if he does that, then there's no way he can motivate them, right? He ain't going to tell us that. But then the second part of that is he kind of throws Trent under the bus. And I ain't saying that's not a good idea, but the thing is he co-signed it. He was right on with it. He just said, we just need to get healthy. And at a point in the offseason when I was like, man, they need to get this guy, I named a whole bunch of big old linemen, right? And by the way, those linemen went to teams, and those teams ain't doing nothing right now either. So that, you just can't fix it just with that alone. But the thing is with the high price of NFL linemen in free agency being what it is, the best way to build your line up is through the draft. And when you're drafting, if all you're paying attention to is length, and I'm not saying that length and athleticism doesn't have a place, but if that's all you're paying attention to, then you're going to miss out on some really, really good football players. The Walker Little experiment has failed. I almost think that yesterday when Doug was going for a kick, he was thinking about going for it on fourth down. When Anton Harrison went down and Walker Little ran in, I said, no, you need to kick it, because Walker Little is going to be guarding and standing right in front of Myles Garrett. And Doug did it. And I don't know if he did it for that reason, but I'm going to tell you something. I was sitting there thinking the whole time, Walker Little just went in the game. You need to make sure you kick this field goal. The offensive line is dictating too many things, in my opinion, that hamstring this team. And like I say, expecting them to admit it is a little bit of you'd be naive to expect them to admit that, because that's two games in, they're going to admit that they're wrong about something. For the first time in my life, I saw frustration on the face of Trevor Lawrence, not only at that press conference at the end of the game. I saw frustration on Trevor Lawrence. I didn't necessarily see his face from the press box, but I saw his body language. He was demonstrative. And that comes along with the added responsibility that you get from being a $250 million quarterback, which leads me to this. There are a lot of people saying Shad ain't going to do nothing. Okay. I'm going to tell you something. The difference is between before and now. Stadium deal's done. They made a commitment to Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence represents the Jacksonville Jaguars players. Trevor Lawrence has their attention. And when you see him act like that and question the plan, oh, you better believe there might be fire where there's smoke. I'll get to that in third, final segment here. Locked on Jaguars. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Gametime. That's right. There ain't no time for procrastination, man, but it is time left for you to get tickets even when you're late. Now, let me explain. Gametime specializes in last-minute ticket purchases to any event you want, whether it's a game, a play, monster trucks, whatever it is, man, you can get tickets at Gametime. And ain't nobody going to be mad at you for being late, because Gametime absolutely specializes in that. All you got to do is take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms apply. Again, I'm going to tell you how to do this. Create an account and redeem code. I'm going to spell it for you. LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Man, what time is it? It is game time. Third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. I got to let you know, too, about the new Locked On NFL show. That's right. Tyler Rowland, the madman, gives you a double shot of espresso early in the morning. And I'm telling you, I come in right in the middle of the day like a barber does. He kind of moseys in, and I give you the barbershop where we bring on the local experts. We talk about everything that's going on with those teams. And sometimes it even includes the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's right. The new Locked On NFL show can be found on our YouTube page, the Locked On NFL YouTube page, or wherever you get your podcast. Now, listen, a lot of talk about what's going to happen. I don't know. I'm going to give them a chance to turn it around. I'll give them a chance to turn it around. Shaq Khan made it very, very clear, though, we have to win. We have to win. He looked me dead in my face and said, yeah, but we got to win now. Spending all this money, committing to players. Players aren't going anywhere. If you don't think the mix of players, personnel, people, and coaches works, you get rid of what you can. You can't get rid of your players. Not all of them anyway. Doug Peterson is on watch, in my opinion. Trent Baalke is on watch, in my opinion. You cannot change the people and the bodies. You can import guys from other teams all you want to. You can go get guys from San Francisco. You can go get guys from Buffalo. You can go get dudes from Kansas City. If they don't come here and play well and change this team, you got a problem. And the Jaguars, obviously, right now, have a problem. Close doesn't matter. Trevor Lawrence even said himself, we played maybe the worst game we could play, and we were right there in the ball game. Well, that's an indictment, in my opinion, on the people that have to navigate this thing and extract the talent and put it together for this team to put things together. They just don't seem to have an answer. This is almost the same thing like that. At this point last year, they were talking about getting out of here. Remember, we need to get out of the city for a while. Do y'all remember that? And now they're sitting there and no one has the answers again. Not only is something wrong, but when I come to the experts to tell me what is wrong, you can't. But then every time someone specifically asks, is it the offensive line? I don't think so. Is it this? I don't think so. Is it that? I don't think so. It just feels, and then the people at the podium go, it starts with me. It starts with me. If you're not careful, Doug Peterson, it's going to end with you being up out here. I wonder if somebody can ask him, and maybe I will if I get a chance to go down there today. At what point do you realize the dudes that you have just aren't capable of doing what you're asking them to do? And I think his answer is going to be when you get fired. That's when you realize that we didn't have the right folks, is when you get fired. And I totally get it, because it's hard that once you commit to people, like once they knew that certain people were on the roster, once they decide to go in a different direction and they depend on those guys to get better, you have to ask yourself, are they capable of it? And two, do we have the right people in order to bring that out of them? And can we put it all together and figure out a way to win? Green Bay lost their quarterback, ran the ball for 778 yards yesterday or whatever, and won a game running the ball. The name of the game is winning. The Chiefs got outplayed, figured out a way to win the ball game. The name of the game is winning. All right. It's not about seeing how cute you can get with these plays. It's not about showing how much depth you have on your roster. The name of the game, first and foremost, is to win. And they came out so flat yesterday. I was just sitting there wondering, like, what is the problem? And Doug basically, when asked about it, said, I don't know how. Basically, I'm paraphrasing now. It's not quotes, but he's like, I don't know how and why. We've been together too long to come out and not be ready to go and just be flat. Some of it has to go on Trevor early in the game. Trevor was high again on balls, throwing balls, not giving the guys chance to make plays. And you have to wonder, as much as it is that everybody talks about, well, just do your job, do your job, do your job. I don't know, man. Y'all ever worked in an environment where it seems like y'all carrying certain people, and the longer you do it, it just becomes too much? There was an old saying in the military when I was in there: I can't carry you. I can push you, but I can't pull you. I can push you, but I can't pull you. And pushing sometimes isn't physical. Sometimes pushing is through motivation. Sometimes pushing is through competition. Sometimes pushing is through tough love. And for me, anything that has to do with the word tough, they don't seem to exemplify that one way or the other. I mean, they want to start fighting people every now and then. They get penalties they shouldn't get. And I'm not saying that they're quitters. But what I'm saying is it's probably natural at some point when you just have to do your job and trust your teammate. If your teammate does things that are counterintuitive to you trusting them, eventually you see the frustration and eventually it boils over. And at some point, there's some finger pointing. Travis Etienne at his locker, somebody mentioned yesterday that Doug Peterson said that they have the talent on the team, or they asked maybe Etienne what he felt about it. And he said, worry about no talent. We need people that work hard. So is that like some sort of indication that they have guys that don't work hard? Do they have guys that aren't working hard? I don't know. I have no clue. I think sometimes there's a little bit of overemphasis on this rotation thing that they're trying to do. And I said this a long time ago. Everybody ain't a first round pick. Everybody's not getting $25 million to be a pass rusher. Everybody's not making $15 million to be a defensive tackle. There is no rotation. It's not hard to understand. They're not rotating offensive linemen because they know they can't do that because they need the continuity. I think other elements of this team, maybe not as much as the offensive line, I think they need continuity too. I wouldn't just change people around just to change people around trying to keep them fresh. I would change people if they're tired. And I don't think 2 games into the season, there's not a person on this team that should be tired of playing. For now on, if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars, I just decide, okay, Trayvon, Josh Allen, Armstead, those are my best players up front. That's who we're playing. Just like you play for Illubacan, we need to find who that other linebacker so far has been. Devin Lloyd. That's who's playing, right? You mix and match a little bit in the secondary. I get that. Wide receiver, we're going with Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis, and Christian Kirk. They're going to play until one of them gets tired or one of them gets hurt, and then we'll put somebody else in. We'll do the little thing at running back. Well, Tank Bigsby's out right now, so it's going to be ETN with a little bit of touch of Dearness Johnson. Treat the rest of your team the same way you treat your offensive line and your quarterback in certain positions on defense. You do not take them out of the game until they either get tired, and if they get tired, you need to do something with conditioning. You either take them out when they're tired. Just don't rotate for rotation's purpose. And that's starting to get on my nerves a little bit. You look out there in a critical juncture of the game and you see people that shouldn't even be in the game, and you realize, well, they just got the ball 4 snaps ago. Why is this person not in the game right now? I'm telling you, man, some things got to change, or change is going to come. And when change comes, it doesn't care who it takes with it. And there might be a lot of people looking for a job at the Jacksonville Jaguars. If they're not favored the next 2 weeks, if they start out 0-4, I say you need to start looking for something every single day. Because at that point, if you don't think they can fix it now, they're really not going to be able to fix it then. Make sure you tap in here every single day. Make us your first listen, and then tap into Locked On NFL. Make it your second listen. You get a double dose with Tyler Rowland in the morning and me, Tony Wiggins, in the afternoon, the madman, and then come to the barbershop. Make sure you check out Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcast. I'm going to keep my ear to the wind, man, and if something breaks, I'll let you know. Until then, tune in tomorrow for another edition of Locked On Jaguars.